Alright guys, today we're doing a hub assembly in real time. Heat your tire off. I've got the key in the ignition, in neutral, and then shut the key off as far as you can. That'll allow you to move the wheels with your hands. You take the wheel off. Have the wheel pointed in a way you can get to the caliper easily. First thing we're going to do is take off the caliper. This one has a 13 millimeter for the bolts. This is going to apply to most hub assemblies. They're all very similar pretty much. Alright, I shouldn't have took that bolt out yet. Rookie mistake. Calipers off. Now we want to take that mounting bracket off. This one's going to be an 18 millimeter. Let that bracket drop. Then we take the rotor off. A lot of times you got to hammer on the flat surface to get her loose, but this rotor is pretty fresh. Not too rusted up. Came right off. Alright, we're going to loosen the axle nut. Now when you reinstall this, you should use a new axle nut. It's always recommended. And check your torque specs. Your parts store should have the torque specs on that, wherever you're buying the hub assembly from. If not, you can look it up online. SKF has guides. There's a hole in the center of this axle that's to put a air chisel in case it won't press back. This one's pressing back freely, which is good. Now we want to get the 3 bolts out from behind the steering knuckle. Alright. And these are 18 millimeter as well. We're going to use a little extender in the impact. Sometimes you got to move the hold the axle back to get enough room to get a socket in on the bolts. If they're really rusty, you can clean up the threads in between the hub. Use a key if you have to. That's not going to let me get a socket in there on the top one. I'm going to turn the wheel. See if I can get a better angle from the other side. There we go. Game free. I gotta use a longer extender for this bottom one because the tie rod end's in the way. Holy crap. This hub assembly just kind of fell out of there. Almost 99% of the time, they're not just going to come right out like that. you have to hammer on the hub assembly or put an air chisel in between the hub assembly and work it back and forth. I can't believe this one just fell out like that. After loosening the bolts. I'm going to separate the dust cover there. Came right off. Now, our new hub assembly comes with a new ABS wheel speed sensor. So we got to track it all the way back to here. This one has a clip on it. It'll work clip free, the safety clip. And then we press down and take that clip off. We got all these little clips holding the sensor in place. Our new sensor should come with new stuff. Just gonna press this one right out of there. Perfect. You get a small flathead to open up all these clips. Need some pliers for one of these clips. Turn the wheel the other way so I can get to one of the clips easier. There we go. Make sure you know how it was routed. This one is on the inside of the brake hose. There it goes. Make note of where your brake shield was. And don't reverse it when reinstalling. Now we can just grab that brake or that sensor wire right out of there. And this hub assembly just slid right off. You know your hub assembly's bad when you turn one way going down the road and it gets quieter, it gets louder the other way. There is a lot of rust. I just knocked all that extra rust off. There's a lot of rust on that PB axle. Just want to kind of keep it clean so that it slides into the new hub assembly easy. I'm going to put a little grease where the hub assembly contacts the inside of the steering knuckle. If you ever need to take it apart again to do ball joints or something like that, that's just going to help it come out without hammering on the hub assembly. Put a little bit of grease on the splines of the CV axle so the new hub slides in there easier. There we go. Most of the time you got to do a lot more hammering than this to extract that hub assembly. Get the rotor off. But this one's just falling apart beautifully. Does not happen very often up here in Michigan where everything rusts. All right, you can see the hub assembly went on this side, the open end towards the caliper. For the dust shield, get my wire fed through there. These bolts are real rusty for the hub assembly. Make sure you clean them off. These ones look pretty good. Want to get my bolt started through the dust cover. Doesn't want to get in there. All right, cool. There we go. Just gonna start those bolts by hand. I turn my wheel all the way one way. Watch out for your caliper. Got my wheel speed sensor routed right where it came through that hole in the shield behind this brake hose. Just gonna hang it up there. Two of the bolts started in. Tighten that one down real good. I'm going to come back around and tighten the other two. Turn in the wheel. just going to zip this axle nut down a little bit. The axle straight. Zip it down a little bit. I'm going to check the torque specs for the axle nut and give it its final torque. After you got everything put together, you can take the cover off the wheel cap, put it back on the ground when everything's assembled, and give the axle nut its final torque. A lot of times the torque's so high you need it on the ground or it just keeps on spinning. So you can put a board on the brakes or have somebody help you. Just hit the brakes while you torque that nut down with the wheel on, with the wheel cover off. You have access to it. It's time to clip this sensor back in where it goes. We got all these new clips on the new hub assembly. When it comes to hub assemblies, you get what you pay for. These holes are so rusty and muddy. It wouldn't let me put the clip in. I'm just cleaning out the hole a little bit. And I think my Dremel tool just broke. Oh, it turned on. There we go. See, that clip will fit in there now. Kind of. There we go. We got her in. I'm going to take this clip off and just reuse the one that's in there. Because when you try to take that style out, it just breaks. And then you got a chunk of plastic in there. It's just a pain. Get out of there, buddy. There we go. Snap that back together. Taking this old clip out, putting with the new one. Sensor plugs into a hole in the frame. Clip our sensor back together. Make sure it's in there all the way. Turn the wheel this way, that way we can assemble the brakes easily. Everything's looking good. Put our rotor back on. I'm going to put one lug nut on just to hold the rotor straight. It helps for lining up that mounting bracket. Put one lug nut on loosely. most hub assembly jobs are going to be very similar. Just take off the wheel, take apart the brakes, loosen the axle from the hub, get your 3 bolts from the back, and you got to loosen that axle first usually, so it pushes back far enough away from the bolts in the back so you can get to them. Most hub assemblies are going to be about the same. There's a couple that this won't apply to. And press-in bearings are going to be different. Put our mounting bracket back on. Time for the caliper. Sure, I got all these nice and tight. Don't forget to take your lug nut off. Put the hair on. Wondering what's going on there. And this is what I mean by doing the final torque on your axle nut. With the wheel cover off, you can get to the axle nut in the middle to get your final torque on it. A lot of them are like 180 foot-pounds, but some of them are as low as like 80, 90. Some are as high as almost 300. So always check your axle nut specs. Biggest cause of premature failure after installing a hub assembly is you either got it over-torqued or under-torqued. Either way, it'll cause premature failure. Go around, torque those lug nuts and that axle nut down to spec, and we're all done. Easy. This one was easy. Other ones you got to torch and hammer on. This one just fell apart. Beautiful.